This guy gets tricked into working on a distant planet to escape his debts. As a result, the boss puts him into a human body printer. From then on, he began a life of constantly dying and being reborn, working non-stop in the vast universe. He has to work 14 hours each day, 7 days a week, and a new body is printed when he gets tired. This guy not only has to help humanity test vaccines and check for radiation, but he also has to negotiate with giant alien creatures. Who said technology changes lives? Is there anyone who can save me from the situation? The story takes place in the far future, when humanity's technology is highly developed, but Earth has become impoverished due to constant consumption. Therefore, Senator Marshall decides to launch a plan to colonize the planet Nibelheim. Our main guy, Mickey, is just a good-looking dude who's seriously down on his luck. He listens to his friends, takes out a loan to open a macaron shop, but it totally flops, and now he owes money to the Mafia. They basically can barely survive, so they decide to join the space colony program. His best friend, Timothy, isn't even a good pilot, but somehow gets chosen to be one. Mickey doesn't have any special skills, so he ends up having to pick the one job nobody wants on the application: consumable material. And like the name says, consumable material is basically just super durable stuff that can be reused a bunch of times. After a bunch of checkups and paperwork, the new employee sends Mickey to get a full body scan. The machine records all his memories and personality into a brick-like hard drive, and this data gets updated every week. After that, Mickey gets sent off to do all the super dangerous missions, like getting exposed to the toxic atmospheres of different planets, or purposely breathing in infectious diseases to test the reactions and help scientists study vaccines. Or they send Mickey into radiation zones to see how long it takes for a human to get burned up, or when his eyes stop working. Seeing his arm just fall off from radiation exposure, Mickey can't help but think back to science class in elementary school when he used to dissect frogs in the lab. Maybe karma is a real thing after all. Every time Mickey dies on a mission, the higher-ups just print out a new body, then upload his memories and personality back into the fresh brain. This kind of tech caused a ton of ethical debate and religious protests. So these days it's only allowed to be used on consumable materials. Basically, ever since he signed that contract selling his soul, Mickey's been living a life full of death and rebirth, constantly doing dangerous jobs out in space. Mickey's life sucks hard, but he did find one sweet thing to do: falling in love with his co-worker, Nasha. Luckily, that lovey-dovey relationship is what's kept Mickey going for the past 4 years. He and Nasha have been leaning on each other the whole time. You could call them soulmates. Mickey's died and been reborn a total of 16 times, and has officially been upgraded to body number 17. One day, Mickey 17 gets sent to an icy planet on a mission. He and a few teammates crawl into this dark cave to scout it out and stumble upon some kind of alien creatures. They're tiny like insects and crawling all over the place. The group figures this isn't a good place to hang out, so they start to head out of the cave. But suddenly, a huge insect flies down from the ice above. Jenny, another consumable material, freaks out, whips out her machine gun, and starts blasting away at the ceiling. Of course, the ice collapses, crushing Jenny Marshall to death. When Marshall finds out about it, he goes ballistic, taking all his anger out on Mickey because he thinks employees like Jenny are precious. One death, and you can't be reborn. Meanwhile, the consumable material like Mickey is the one that's meant to rush to the front. Mickey, who's always down on his luck, not only gets punished with half rations, but also has to work extra hours. 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. He's got to wade to the snow every day, catching insects. Timothy, his buddy, even takes a chance to laugh at him while they're handing out supplies. As if Mickey wasn't suffering enough, that day, he frantically opens a supply bag, and before he can even shove any food in his mouth, it all falls into a snow hole. Timothy rushes over to see what's up, and he's surprised that Mickey isn't dead. Then, a giant insect leaps forward and opens its jaws at Mickey. Now, you might think that death wouldn't be scary for Mickey, but the reality is the opposite. Every death is a terrifying experience for him. So, when he opens his eyes and sees that the insect didn't kill him, he feels super lucky. But then, the giant insect drags Mickey into a nest, and thousands of larvae swarm toward him. Mickey is desperate, wondering if they're planning to fatten him up as food for their kids. But the insect and the others don't eat Mickey. Instead, they all work together to drag him out of the cave. Mickey looks up and sees nothing but a sea of white snow. Maybe fate isn't totally against him, because he quickly spots a snowmobile. Mickey frantically runs for it, jumps on, and battles his way back to the base. He drags himself back to the dorm and collapses on the bed. only to find someone else already there. Turns out, headquarters figured Mickey 17 was dead, so they already printed out body number 18. According to the rules for clones, if identical people show up and can't be reconciled, they both have to be terminated. To save his own skin, Mickey 18 quickly grabs a fire axe next to him, getting ready to kill Mickey 17, shut him up for good. Before we go any further, we need to fill you in on some of the legal stuff surrounding these clones. After humanity developed human body printing tech, there's a super important figure, Manakova. This guy was originally a mental patient with a criminal record. Manakova used human body printing tech to create an exact copy of himself, using it to create fake alibis and carry out a series of brutal murders. Luckily, the police caught wind of what he was up to and arrested both Manakovas. But then a whole bunch of problems popped up. Were the two Manakovas accomplices, or was one being manipulated by the other? Were these separate crimes, or was it one person acting all along? In prison, do they only get half rations, or does each one get a full serving? Legal experts, ethicists, everyone was scratching their heads. While the two Manakovas were being held in interrogation, a homeless person was brutally murdered. And the killer? A third Manakova clone. This whole thing immediately sparked panic, and human body printing tech came under even more scrutiny. To solve this problem, meeting after meeting was held. Finally, Marshall made a decision that human body printing was an abomination, a creation of Satan. But he insisted that we had to figure out how to use this technology responsibly to benefit humanity. Marshall proposed testing human body printing tech off-world, under strict supervision. Each planet, each expedition would only be allowed one clone those consumable materials we were talking about earlier. If multiple clones popped up during the process, Marshall promised to deal with it and permanently eliminate all the individuals. Back to the story. Clone 18 has knocked Clone 17 unconscious and is getting ready to shove him into the reincarnation machine to destroy him. Clone 17 suggests they split the work and take turns resting. That way they'll both be less exhausted. Clone 18 doesn't get it. How many times has he died already and he's still afraid of death? The near-death experience on the ice is what changed Clone 17's view of death. Even though his body is created from biogel and his memories get transferred to his brain via those brick hard drives, Clone 17 still can't replace the real him. Why should he live just to die? Unfortunately, Clone 18 isn't convinced by these words, and he forcefully pushes Clone 17 into the reincarnation machine. At this critical moment, Timothy suddenly shoves a cart into the room, startling them both and sending them scrambling for cover. Looking at the situation, this whole thing is seriously messed up from an ethical standpoint. They went to space and joined the immigration program, and they're still planning to do shady stuff like this. Clone 18 looks at the scene with an angry expression and asks Clone 17, "Why didn't you kill that kid?" Before, Timothy tricked Mickey into opening a store, and most of the loans were in Mickey's name. Clone 17 is startled. Clone 18 doesn't listen, and directly runs out and pushes Timothy into the reincarnation machine. In reality, you can clearly see the difference in Mickey's personality here. When they printed Clone 18, the staff dropped some syringes, causing his personality to be distorted. At this moment, Timothy uses all his strength to hold onto his body, begging Mickey for help. But Clone 18 is no longer as obedient as before. He grabs a burning stick and prepares to stab Timothy. However, some staff members suddenly appear. Clone 17 hurriedly looks for a place to hide. Afterwards, he lowers his head and warns Timothy, "Keep your mouth shut, don't talk nonsense." After Clone 18 says those threatening words, he pulls Timothy up. Timothy is probably the type of person who's weak to the strong, and he doesn't dare to expose the truth that he was just pushed down. Afterwards, Clone 18 hugs Nasha and leaves, his hand not being well behaved as he places it on her butt. Clone 17 is hiding in a corner, his eyes wide. "That's my girlfriend, understand?" He secretly crawls after the two of them back to the dormitory. Unexpectedly, they're stopped by the manager on the way. It seems Marshall is organizing some kind of promotional event and wants to choose a lucky employee and their family to have dinner together. The lucky employee is led into a private restaurant. You should know that ordinary employees can only eat processed food, and the rations are very strictly controlled. Clone 17 finally has the opportunity to eat delicious food. He attentively eats and drinks non-stop. Not long after, Jenny's friend Kai is also invited to the table. Marshall and his wife look at Kai's genes and think that she is the perfect model colonist. They say that she is the perfect candidate to apply for reproduction on this planet. After hearing this, Kai is immediately unhappy. "Do you guys just see me as a uterus?" Mrs. Marshall hurriedly explains, "We don't want to turn women into machines for reproduction. Marshall's only goal is to own a planet just for purebred humans, a planet with real agricultural products and meat, where everyone can enjoy dinner together with exquisite sauce. Sauce is a highlight of civilization. Eating raw meat is the act of barbarians," Marshall says. Clone 17 looks at his plate. There's only a piece of raw meat, completely different from Kai's exquisite plate of food. Marshall and his wife really treat Clone 17 as a low-class person. To please Kai, they pretend to pray for Jenny. Before they can finish speaking, Clone 17 suddenly falls to the ground, convulsing. It turns out Marshall fed him artificial meat. Because the technology isn't perfect, the growth hormones in the meat cause Clone 17's body to be covered in rashes. It turns out this meal was just a trap. Marshall only wanted to test the artificial meat on Clone 17. Marshall immediately calls the research staff to bring the special pain reliever they developed. However, when they inject the medicine, Clone 17 not only doesn't stop hurting, but also writhes like a wounded fish. Seeing the situation is too serious, Marshall pulls out his gun, preparing to end Clone 17's life, and emphasizes that this is a humanitarian act. But Mrs. Marshall unexpectedly yells, "Stop, you can't shoot on my carpet." She hurriedly pulls the precious carpet out of the way. Beside her, Kai can't bear to watch any longer. She speaks up, "You can't treat Mickey like this." However, Marshall doesn't feel any remorse at all. He just says Mickey is only a printed product, and signing the contract to be a consumable material was also his own free will. After saying this, Marshall prepares to shoot. Unexpectedly, Clone 17 tightly grips the barrel of the gun, not want to give up his life because of a little pain. Seeing this, Kai hurriedly helps Clone 17 back to the dormitory, also helps him dry his clothes, and prepares herbal tea to relieve his stomach pain. You should know that in a context where resources are extremely scarce, herbal tea is truly a luxury item. Kai treats Clone 17 so kindly because she wants to know what it feels like to face death, especially after witnessing her friend Jenny being buried under the ice. Mickey frankly shares that no matter how many times he experiences death and rebirth, he feels fear and pain every time. At this moment, Kai realizes that Clone 17 isn't just a printed product. He also has feelings, and he's a real person. She notices that the atmosphere between them is gradually becoming more ambiguous. Clone 17 hurriedly pushes Kai away and leaves because he loves Nasha. He can't betray his partner. He rushes back to the dormitory and discovers that Nasha is with Clone 18. When she meets the two Mickeys, she isn't afraid at all, but is even very excited, thinking that having two identical people is very interesting. However, Clone 17 quickly realizes that Nasha isn't right. Looking back, he discovers that there's a stinky smell on the table, similar to rotting meat. Nasha, in a state of excitement, pushes both Mickeys down, but before she can do anything, Kai catches up, bringing the herbal tea. Kai sees this scene, doesn't say anything, turns around, and leaves. Nasha immediately chases after her and explains that Mickey didn't intentionally violate any rules, but this was an incident caused by headquarters. She hopes Kai won't reveal this matter. Unexpectedly, Kai requests a strange condition, that she leave Clone 17 for her. After all, she has two Mickeys, so why not share a little? After hearing this, Nasha also gets angry. She says, whether it's Clone 17 or 18, both are my boyfriend. They aren't cookies that can be shared. Elsewhere, Clone 18 hears about the incident at the restaurant and becomes extremely angry. He questions Clone 17. "Don't you have any revenge towards Marshall?" Clone 17 replies, "Not only do I not have any revenge, I even thank him for the dinner." Clone 18 can't stand it anymore. The blood in his body seems to rush to his head, and he wants to explode immediately. He hurriedly grabs a weapon and prepares to go kill Marshall. Seeing this, Clone 17 hurriedly chases after him to stop him. At this moment, Marshall is giving a speech about bringing back a black rock from the icy planet. He's preparing to carve his name on it. This rock will become the symbol of Nibelheim. Just as Marshall is speaking, Clone 18 squeezes into the crowd, slowly pulling out a gun from his sleeve. However, the change comes unexpectedly. A giant insect suddenly crawls out from the rock. The whole area immediately descends into chaos. The insect is just a small one, but if anyone didn't know, they might think Godzilla was invading. Clone 18, holding a weapon, is also subdued by the security guards. Staff members wearing protective clothing chase after the insect, running and jumping everywhere. Finally, Clone 17 rushes in to help everyone catch the terrifying insect. Meanwhile, Clone 18 takes this opportunity to break free from restraint. He quickly picks up his weapon again and aims at Marshall. At the most dangerous moment, Nasha jumps over and pushes Clone 18 away, causing the bullet to hit the rock. Marshall sees the two Mickeys at the same time. His face is full of shock, but his first reaction is to continue holding the microphone and pretend like he doesn't know anything. No one expected that another terrifying insect would appear from inside the rock cave. Kai immediately grabs a gun and commands the security team to shoot down the insect. Marshall hurriedly disinfects himself, fearing that he's been infected with a dangerous virus. After recovering, he orders the arrest of both Mickeys and the detention of Nasha for not reporting the incident. During the time he's in prison, Clone 17 says that the insects actually aren't scary at all. They once saved him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape from the icy planet. Hearing this, Nasha is extremely happy and proposes reporting to the scientific community about how these insects saved a human life. She wants to declare that these insects saved humanity. Before she can finish speaking, Timothy suddenly appears. Beside him is a henchman. It turns out Timothy just received a threatening letter from the Mafia, demanding that he cut Mickey into pieces and send him back to Earth. Otherwise, the Mafia will kill him. Timothy begs Clone 17 for understanding. If he dies, it's all over, but Mickey can easily be recreated. Timothy pretends to be pitiful and orders the henchman to proceed. At this moment, Clone 18 speaks up, stopping Timothy. I almost pushed you into the reincarnation machine before, so why not just directly take action against me? He emphasizes that way you'll complete the mission and be able to vent your anger. However, Clone 18 has one request. He wants a Western-style cigarette with an ozone flavor as a last cigarette before being executed. Timothy pretends to agree and tells the henchman to give the cigarette to Clone 18. But Clone 18 unexpectedly grabs the henchman's hand. At this moment, Nasha seizes the opportunity to grab the opponent's electric gun and shoot down Timothy. Afterwards, she finds a key and opens a prison door. Timothy grabs an electric saw and prepares to attack, but Clone 17 hurriedly stops him. Meanwhile, Clone 18 actually defends a violent action, encouraging Timothy to act. Fortunately, at the critical moment, a staff member appears. Nasha drops the electric saw and tells him about how the insects save people, proving the goodness of their actions. Clone 17 watches Nasha's departing figure, his heart full of gratitude. Because Nasha is the only one who always shows deep concern for Mickey, she has never regarded him as a soulless product. Throughout the past 4 years, she has never looked down on any consumable material. Every time Mickey dies, Nasha feels the pain as if it were her own. She's extremely distressed. At this time, Clone 17 notices that outside the base, there's a huge crowd of insects gathering. It's definitely because the larvae that the headquarters captured are constantly emitting cries for help, causing the insects to come in large numbers. The manager is worried that if they all attack the perimeter wall, the consequences will be unimaginable. The staff members decide to record the sounds of the larvae, hoping to analyze some kind of pattern. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Marshall requests to handle the larvae herself. She pulls out the tail of the insect and uses a scalpel to cut it off. It sounds like Mrs. Marshall is planning to use the insect to make a new kind of sauce. In reality, this action is a self-parody by director Bong Joon-ho, implicitly referring to the absurdity of the upper class's pursuit of unreasonable goals, justifying a sense of existence. Marshall sees that the two Mickeys still haven't died and immediately orders them to be thrown into the reincarnation machine, to be destroyed, and have their stored memories erased. Afterwards, he prepares to launch a war against the insects. Nasha hurriedly stops Marshall, explaining that war will consume a lot of energy and calories. While humans have only just arrived at this colonial planet, maintaining survival and development is already very difficult, let alone launching a war. In addition, the insects have been flying around this area for several hours without doing anything. It seems they don't intend to attack humans. Moreover, the insects previously saved Mickey. She believes that there's still another way to resolve this. After hearing this, Marshall bursts out laughing. He says Mickey is just a piece of recyclable trash, dying and then being printed again. Surely the insects also realize this and know that they can't eat trash. A young girl wearing glasses speaks up, asserting that the insects actually have cognitive abilities and show signs of high intelligence. Marshall shakes his head, saying he would never negotiate with insects. Unexpectedly, a larva nearby seems to have understood this statement and spits saliva on him. Marshall is angry, calling the insects alien creatures. However, he doesn't realize that it's humans who are the invaders of their territory. Nasha strongly criticizes Marshall, but he becomes angry and decides to launch a total extermination campaign. Mrs. Marshall then puts forward a terrible idea. The two Mickeys will be fitted with antimatter bombs. If they try to leave controlled range, the bombs will automatically explode. At the same time, she demands that the two Mickeys cut as many insect tails as possible in order to collect materials for making sauce. Whoever cuts off 100 tails will be able to be reborn. A young girl wearing glasses, knowing what's happening, gives Mickey a translator. Although it hasn't been tested, it might be useful. Clone 17 holds a translator and goes to find the insect mother to negotiate. Unexpectedly, this method is effective. Clone 17 asks the mother insect to quickly take her offspring away. Otherwise, the poison bomb attached to his back will kill everyone. The mother insect doesn't understand why her child was killed, even though it previously saved humans. Clone 18 unexpectedly asks another larva what its name is. The mother thinks that a larva named Lucko is also dead and immediately leads all the insects to fly into the sky, emitting a strange sound wave. Clone 17 and Nasha have to cover their ears because the sound is too loud. The insect mother says that all of these invaders will have to die. Clone 17 runs to the monitoring room, making signs requesting the return of the larva. However, Marshall doesn't hear him and angrily scolds Mickey, asking why a loser is representing humanity to negotiate with insects. Marshall orders preparations for cameras, so he can go outside to meet the insect mother, recording that great moment. Clone 17 has no other choice but to tell the insect mother that the larva Lucko isn't dead, requesting that she stop immediately. The insect mother demands that humanity pay the price for killing one of her children. Before Mickey can speak, Marshall and the film crew rush outside. At the same time, Nasha seizes the opportunity to attack Mrs. Marshall, tightening her grip on her neck and requesting that she release the larva. Mrs. Marshall, fearing death, hurriedly agrees. But as soon as she is freed, she immediately uses a scalpel to attack the person in charge. The person in charge, holding his injured arm, criticizes the Marshals for exceeding their authority. All of the video evidence will be sent to the council for review, and the Marshals will face a lawsuit. Nasha quickly embraces the larva and runs to find Mickey. At this moment, the giant insects sense the threat from Marshall and gather around the mother. Clone 18 merges into a crowd of insects, saying goodbye to Clone 17, seemingly ready for sacrifice. As soon as the words leave his mouth, the two are swept away by the insects. Marshall sees that the negotiations have failed and orders his subordinates to open fire on the insect mother. Unexpectedly, Clone 18 suddenly rushes forward, holding a knife and slashing toward Marshall. Clone 17 finally reunites with Nasha. The two hurriedly give the larva back to the mother. At the same time, Clone 18 tightly holds Marshall, preventing him from turning off the control button on his hand. Clone 18 tearfully looks at Clone 17 one last time, and then detonates the bomb attached to his body, repaying everything that has happened. Finally, the chaos ends. 6 months later, that base welcomes a new spring. Nasha has joined the election and entered Parliament, leading the demonstration demanding that the government abolish the consumable material program. Mickey has personally destroyed the body printing machine. The story ends here. This film is adapted from Edward Ashton's science fiction novel Mickey 7, with a production cost of up to $118 million, making it the highest budget film in director Bong Joon-ho's career. The story's main point emphasizes Mickey's thoughts on death and life, repeatedly mentioning the philosophical thought experiment of the ship of Theseus. Simply put, if a ship continuously replaces its parts until there are no original parts left, is it still the same ship? In the film, Mickey gradually becomes aware that every time he dies, he realizes that he himself cannot be replaced, and that the consumable material technology, along with human body printing, should not exist ethically. In particular, the role of Commander Marshall, played by Mark Ruffalo, deliberately mimics the acting habits and manner of speaking of a famous figure. This shows that the director is ridiculing the arrogant high-level management organizations in real society, which are actually just flimsy management groups. The film maintains Bong Joon-ho's familiar style. Although it may not reach the heights of Parasite, it's still a worthwhile commercial film to watch.